Welcome to Raf's Cast, Tales from MohawkAd. This podcast is for the advertising students from Mohawk College in Hamilton, Ontario, and also for advertising students from any program around the planet. This time, we're having a conversation with one of the students that I can talk about film photography and also advertising and design. The amazing Matt Camara. He's an associate creative director at Doug&Par, and he went through to say tons of interesting things about what to expect on the pandemic, after the pandemic, especially for juniors and students looking for an internship. Let's go. Hello, everybody. We're back here with Rascast, Tales from MohawkAd. Right now, I have here the amazing Matt Camara, class of 2011. And it's been a time. He's an associate creative director at Doug&Par, and he had an amazing career as an art director and photographer and really a thinker behind a lot of different ideas and campaigns. And I think Matt has a lot to say today to our Mohawk students and advertising students overall, because I know there's advertising students from all over who listen to this. Not that I have a huge audience, but there's a few. Let's welcome Matt.
Wow, thanks for having me, Ralph. Those are some real kind words. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was looking forward to this all week, so I'm looking forward to talk about my tales, my adventures in advertising, especially where it all started at Mohawk. And I've been wanting to catch up with you for a long time.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's funny, not even about advertising, more about, like you said, photography. Because I think
yes. Well, the last times I bounced into Matt into few a few years ago, like that. I think the last before the pandemic, the last 2 years before that was it the Antique Fair camera when they have analog fair camera in Toronto, and
yeah.
we're there hunting for film and old cameras and that kind of stuff. We're gonna have a conversation about that too today. Matt, what I remember about you that you at one time it was one of the most keen students that I remember that you were able to stay a long time as an intern to prove yourself to be the employee that they want. And that's, for me, one of the most amazing things that I ever saw from a former student. And to be in a position that you are today. And I was like, he's really, really want this and get this. And that's what it really gets my respect for what
Oh,
you, not that you didn't have before, but even more. You know what I'm trying to say?
yeah, oh yeah,
Uh,
for sure. No, that's great. That's really nice to say. Yeah, because I think it was funny because Lo Roche, when they were around, they had this great intern night, portfolio night that advertising students from OCAD, Mohawk, Sheridan, from all the schools would kind of show up and show off their work. And you and Jeff actually told me to, like, hey, there's this intern night, portfolio night. You guys gotta, you're calling all the students to go out. And I remember redoing my book 24 hours before the portfolio night
well,
because I wanted to get it perfect. I was refining everything on it. And but the funny thing is, it was just as iPads were coming out, and I had a physical book, right? I was like, "Ooh, should I bring an iPad? Should I bring a physical book?" And I was actually really happy that I brought a
it was
physical
that
book.
was that transition period of
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So like, people were like, "Oh, iPads, they were expensive. How can you show off your work?" And it's like, so I was in the midst of that transition. So I actually brought a physical book, which I put in my grandfather's old leather accounting book. He had this really great green leather hardcover accounting book that I put my work in.
I see.
Yeah, so I try to make it as unique as possible too, right? And so they saw my work. Mark Bernanke, Steph Mackey, they were the CDs at La Roche at the time, and yeah, they offered me the internship, and it was during a time when internships weren't even paid for, right?
Hmm.
Students weren't even getting paid. They're getting the Go Transit pass paid for, and maybe some, per diems here and there, a lot of cab chits, free cabs. But yeah, I did it for 8 months, 8 months.
Wow.
And I I remember coming home late nights, 2, 3 in the morning sometimes. Like I'd be working on pitches for them, right? Or trying to win new business. And I'd be staying there as late as I could just to, you know, show how dedicated I was. And I remember my dad telling me, is it worth it? He kept telling me, that you can probably get a job instantly somewhere else, Matt. Is it, are you sure you're doing it? Are you certain that you want to do this? I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
I want to do this. I want to do this. It's going to pay off. And then all of a sudden, Dave Douglas and Pete Breton, the new CDs of La Roche, they came in and they heard that I was doing this unpaid internship and they saw the work I was doing. They're like,
Oh,
we got to change this. And so it paid off. It paid off. They offered me a full time job, and that's where I met my copywriter that I pretty much worked with for a good 6 years of my career. And I loved it there. I got to work with some of the best creatives in the city, in Toronto, and even Canada. I learned a lot of design. I learned a lot of production fundamentals when I was at La Roche, and the years that I spent there, the skills that I learned while my internship was there, I still use constantly today. And it's I always look back at those times and I'm like, wow, I'm glad that I did that intern. I'm glad that I you know stuck it through, because I've met new creative directors that I've worked for, and agencies
mhm.
that I've gone to, TBWA, Juniper Park, even at Doug and Partners now, Mosaic. When I was at Mosaic, everyone always said, you worked at La Roche. We can tell that you used to work at La Roche, just because the way they just taught you and the way you had to constantly just keep coming up with ideas, and ideas that stood out, because back then I wasn't doing a lot of digital. I was doing a lot of print.
Mhm.
And you had to stand out in print. You didn't have 5-second pre-rolls. You didn't have this time to like get the person's attention. I had a physical print ad. It's gone in a second if you turn in a newspaper or you turn in a magazine, right? So I loved it. I loved it. I never looked back. I never regretted putting in the free 8 months of work.
But there was something then about the way the craft was executed with the idea
Oh
and
yeah.
the strategy that
Yeah,
was
like that's the one thing, like I learned from especially Steph and Mark, was your idea can't just be a creative idea. It can't just be a really funny, smart idea. It needs
mhm.
to it needs to tie into the strategy. It needs to tie into the brief. It needs to tie into all these columns that are given to you within a brief. And it's funny because, in school, it's like no brief really, right? It's like it
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
have
the
all
sandy
these songs,
blocks are gigantic. Yes.
right? And I was like, oh, wait a minute. But then I found that really fun, actually, because like that allowed me to think in a really different, unique way. Like, for instance, when I was at La Roche, we were working with Warner Brothers, and we had to do a promo for Mad Max, and we
Oh,
only
okay.
we yeah we they wanted to do an activation. They wanted something to cost. I think we spent maybe $20,000, $25,000 on creating the set design, and they wanted something cool, something that was going to become a viral video. Right, this is when digital started to become what it is now, right? And that was the brief. We want a viral video, but we have 25 grand. And so we did the Dusty Car Wash. We got people to come in, and we sprayed with olive oil or vegetable oil and dust. We stenciled these really cool kind of gears and cogs and the Mad Max logo on people's cars, and we set this whole area on the corner of Bloor and Church to kind of get people's attention, and it did. Yeah, it was super fun. It was super super fun. But it was like, once
Mhm.
again, we had this sandbox to play in. It's like, hey, these are your constraints. and it actually allowed us to come up with that idea, right? So I think working within a brief, actually, the one thing, out of school going into the real world, I've I've found it challenging, but I've also learned to like embrace it, right? Because that's where you get some really unique stuff.
After almost 5 years there, how did it change to Alpha Zulu for Juniper Park? Sorry,
Yeah. Juniper
TBWA,
Park, TBWA.
TBWA,
Yeah,
TBWA.
yeah.
Yes.
So me and Kelly, we became partners,
Oh,
and yeah. So my old copywriter, he left, and then me and Kelly became partners just at the end of
it,
La
it
Roche.
was it was it was just TBWA at the time. It was not
Yeah, yeah,
Juniper.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And so
Was
me
it
and
still in
Kelly
the
became,
Spadina, end of the Spadina in Lakeshore?
yeah,
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Spadina in the Queen's
Yeah.
Quay there. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They had the pirate flag
Oh
in the
yes.
building. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That's the best part. So me and Kelly, we went to TBWA, and I think what I wanted when I left La Roche was I wanted to work on really big brands. I wanted to work on like Nissan, Gatorade. I wanted the ability to kind of work on these bigger brands, bigger budgets, right? La Roche didn't really have that anymore. And so me and Kelly went to TBWA, and then they became Juniper Park. And I got to work
Hmm.
on Nissan. Nissan was like is where like, I love cars. I love working on cars, and so it was really fun to work on Nissan there. But I think the thing I learned going to TBWA, which is really interesting, I guess every time I made a stop at an agency, I learned something new about what I wanted out of advertising. Culture. I learned that an agency's culture is
Hmm.
super, super vital and important because, when the merger happened, when they both became one, during that time period, it just didn't feel like TBWA, right? I went to TBWA because of the culture and the creative kind of persona that it had,
Matt,
right?
how can I explain to our students what is an agency culture?
Agency culture, for me, it's a lot of things. For me, it's the type of work that the agency is making, right? If you look at a lot of agencies, you can kind of see their personality lives within the creative, right? All their creative kind of feels like, when you look at Rethinks commercials, you feel, oh, that's Rethinks commercial, right? You can tell by the way that it is, right? And so culture for me is a little bit of that, a little bit about the creatives who are working there, especially the CDs, because that's where I want to learn from. Because eventually I want to become a CD. So that to me, the CDs is also part of the culture. It's
Hmm.
you know how they how they review you or review your ideas, right? How they jam, how they deal with clients. I learn a lot from CDs that way, right? So that's part of the culture there for me too. Is who's in charge. But then the rest of it, the majority of it, I'd say those two first things make up 40%. Then the rest for me is just a general energy, vibe, and the day to day of how people within the agency interact with each other. Um, I feel like I've been to agencies where no one hangs out on a Thursday or on a Friday after work, have a couple drinks, talk about the week, talk about what's going to happen in the future, just hang, don't even talk about work,
Hmm.
and I think that's another part of it because for me, you got to have fun for what you do. If you're not having
Hmm.
fun, why are you doing it? And I, if I'm going to make a hard earned dollar, I want to make sure I'm having fun doing it. And I've had fun every day. And I think that reflects in the work. I think if you're not having fun at what you do, then the work's going to reflect that.
So it's fair
Yeah.
to say that to the students when they're about to graduate, their third year, they begin to, or even from first year, begin to research in the agencies and begin to see which kind of work reflects on the kind of strategy or way of thinking they had.
Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah. I would definitely think when they are shopping around their books, when students are going out doing the research, yeah, do the research. Find ads that touch you in a special way that you think is, oh, I think like that. Or, hey, that's my kind of humor. And look them up. Find out who made it. Find the art director and the copywriter and the CD who made it. Find out what agency they're at currently, but then also look at what agency they came from, right? They obviously got there by where they learned before, right? So yeah, definitely finding out what agency meshes with you, because like I said, the last thing you want is to come in, especially for an internship.
Oh,
You don't want to be you don't want to be coming in for an internship and not liking the people, not liking the vibe, because then that's not gonna that's not gonna benefit your work, right? I know when I was at La Roche, like I'd come in and we'd have Taco Tuesdays, and Dave and Pete would bring in a mariachi band every once in a while,
oh my
and
God.
an actual full set mariachi band, and they would just play while we're having tacos. So like that's part of the culture, right? Those random things like that, like there was times where if I was working late at Mosaic, for instance, because I was a CD at Mosaic, and if I saw a bunch of other creatives and designers working late, I would order pizza. I'd order food for everybody. I wouldn't ask anyone. I'd be like, yo, I'm ordering food. What do you want? That's part of culture, right? That's part of the morale, right? I knew every single creative that I oversaw. I know how they liked their coffee, what the breakfast they loved in the morning,
Wow.
what their favorite hangover food was, because the next day I'd have that there waiting for them. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, oh yeah, it's like they love that, right? It's a reason why it just puts a smile on their face and the work's going to be better. That's how I think, that's how I think of it. That's just my personal experience, I guess.
Probably it's working.
I think it is. Because that's another thing too. When I left Mosaic, I left because the culture wasn't right. The culture wasn't the one that I liked, and so I left there. And when I searched around, I couldn't find a place that had the culture like Doug and Partners. It's a smaller agency. It's like a family, right? You get to know everybody personally. Once again, you get to know how people take their coffee, how they take their subs, how they take their wraps in the morning. Who's vegan, who's loves meat. Like, so I love that. You get to know the players, your teammates, a lot better. And that's another thing at a larger agency. They do get bigger clients, bigger budgets, but then I feel like in my personal experience, it's hard to become an individual at an agency. At an agency that's super super big. Mosaic had over 400 people, and so just to keep
Wow.
everyone's name straight was challenging. And so yeah, I guess, but it comes down to personal preference, right? Some people do love big agencies, and for me, I just love that family kind of vibe.
How was your experience as you want to work with a big client and cars? How was your experience work with Nissan? Nissan. So it was like, oh my God, now I have this big account on TBWA. How was the experience? You think the limitations are greater or tough to work? How do you think people should prepare when it comes to reality to work with a big? Because I know it's complex. I know there's a lot of layers on a campaign.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm, good question. I would say it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's really tough out there. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's not it's not gonna be easy at first. There's gonna
Hmm.
be a lot of um, fight or flight, sink or swim types of moments. And in those moments, you really have to ask yourself, is this is it worth it? Because there are going to be late nights. I'm not going to lie about that. There's
Hmm.
been times where I have worked 26, 27 hours straight for pitches, haven't gotten any sleep, stayed at the office. The office had a shower. I showered at the office, got dressed, did the
Hmm.
pitch. We won the pitch, and then we celebrated. And then from there, that's where you realize, it's all worth it when you win those wins, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, like I said, it's tough, but I think it's really about putting in the hours and trying to. I think if I were to go back in time and try to redo one thing in my career, I would say I would try to learn more computer programs. I love all the computer programs, and I try to learn them as much as I can. But
Mm-hmm.
I wish I learned more motion graphics, After Effects, that kind of stuff. You know, um,
Nowadays we have a lot of After Effects at the college.
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Because being able to do just motion graphics, all that is, you don't know how many times now that I'm like, I got a source that's kind of, I wish I could do it. I wish I could just boom, boom. And I've been taking, actually recently now, take like courses on it, and I'm like learning it now. I'm like, oh man, I wish I
Mm-hmm.
got into this sooner, you know? Um, just try to absorb that stuff as much as possible. I know I learned a lot of print production, and I, because of you, Rav, learning like a lot of that print production stuff and photography basics, like for me, when I was getting into advertising, it was perfect. It was perfect.
It was just a
Yeah.
seed to you
Yeah.
to get a hook
And
on it. Yeah.
exactly. And I learned so much about print production at La Roche. And like, it's funny because, like I said, when I was at Mosaic and I was doing experiential stuff, experiential design, and doing like just designing these experiences for brands, how many times I taught people Pantones and how Pantones work. And it's like, I've had
Oh,
people, oh man,
you had
I've
to
had people,
explain to.
oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes, I
Okay.
had to explain to people. I had people, Raf, send digital screenshots of my design, of section of the color of my design, and sent it to a print to
Oh
get
my!
printed the vinyl wrap. Just
I
print it
can
this
feel
color.
it.
I'm like, no, there's a Pantone. Give them the
Yes.
Pantone color, and then it'll be exact. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
using. That's what I'm using. That like, and so I had to teach people like how the Pantone books work. Like these books aren't here gathering dust for no reason. Like we got to be
Mm-hmm.
using these. And so, yeah, I try to like, and that's another thing too. I think in my career now, I'm really wanting to pass on my knowledge, you know, as much as I can. I'm willing to. How many times I've asked so many junior art directors, like, hey, do you want me to take a look at that? You know, I can give you some feedback
Mm-hmm.
before you like, you know, you share it with the CD, or, you know, like, do you want a hand with like designing stuff? You know, like I always just try to just share my knowledge as much as I can. And I think that's why when you told me about this podcast, I was like, yeah, I want to do this. Um, but yeah, I think, like I said, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough at first, but then it gets super easy. Like, it's funny. It's funny because the other day I was doing a photo shoot for one of our clients, and I had like over 120 some odd images from this photographer, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like something that, you know, someone just getting into the industry might, you know, be like, okay, this one, that one, but now I'm like, yep, nope. Oh, eyes are more open, more. Oh, she has more of a smile. Perfect. Love it. Love it. Like, it's just like, oh, here's my selects. Boom. Here's a tight. Here's a wide. Here's a medium. Here's this kind of expression. I just, boom, have a checklist that I have in my mind now. It's like, here you go. Here's 10 selects that meet any kind of need that you want. You know, just let me know which ones you want, you know, like, and so now it comes supernatural, you know, and it comes super quick, you know, and it's like also designing things now becomes second nature, you know what I mean? Like with
It's
a
not
client's
even
like, oh,
sync. It's like put it
yeah,
together.
yeah, exactly, you know, and it's like, where at first it's like, oh man, where do I start? You know, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's daunting. It is daunting at first, but with time, it will become second nature, second nature.
Matt, tell me about the stage after you went for the first time to Doug& Partners and left Juniper Park to BWA. How was that transition from senior art director into associate creative director there? How was that transition?
Um, after
What made you decide to let's now go to the CDC? Let's do the CDC.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted. I think for me, I knew I was ready for it. I was already taking on so much responsibility at TBWA Juniper Park. Like I'd be going to shoots without my CDs there. Like they had. I'd be going to color transfers and stuff without any kind of supervision. You know what I mean? And they always loved what the turnout. And so I knew I was kind of ready for this next level. And like I said, I wanted to do that at a place that was a little bit smaller, felt more like family, and Doug and Partners felt like that. And it was great. Like I felt like at first the transition was, like I said, there's those moments in your career where you're like, is it worth it? Like I know I have to, I got a lot of projects on the go that I'm managing, a lot of people I got to oversee, and it's like, is it worth it? I knew it was worth it. I knew it was worth it because at the end, I made some really, really great creatives. Some of the stuff that I'm probably the most proud of, the Go RVing stuff, Go RVing Canada, Bring Back Wildhood. Like that's some of my favorite stuff that I've ever created in my career.
How was that campaign? Can you tell a little bit to the students?
Yeah, so Go RVing Canada, they are a brand that lets people buy and rent RVs all across Canada. And they wanted people to disconnect from, phones and reconnect with Canada, with the like this great backyard that we have. And it's funny because now with the pandemic, their sales have skyrocketed. People have now realized it's like I can rent an RV. I have a washroom. I have a kitchen. I have Wi-Fi on them now, and it's like you can go anywhere in Canada.
Kelly bought one. I think Kelly
what?
bought a video one.
Oh man,
those small ones. I think.
I'm jealous. Jealous. He would do that. And so we wanted to do that. We wanted to tell people, hey, reconnect, right? Not only with your family, but with nature too, right? And so this whole notion of bringing back wildhood, let's not eat with forks. Let's eat with sticks again. Let's not stay under fluorescent lights, but let's stay under stars of the night, and like kind of like taking this kind of twist of the stuff that we do every day and like being like, hey, get back out there. It was awesome. When I first came up with this, when they first gave me this brief, I knew exactly. Once again, this is another instance where it came so naturally the idea for this campaign. Like I said, I wanted to feel like a memory, right? Like learning from you for old analog film, Super 8 film. I wanted to have this euphoric memory, like it feels
like a tangible memory, like something
something familiar, right? And I love this campaign. I loved it so much so that they actually had to send me to Las Vegas. So this is another reason why you should stay in, I guess, advertising, because sometimes the perks are worth it. They sent me to Las Vegas for 3 days during the RV conference. And they wanted me to present the idea because the client fell in love with how I presented it to him, the way I described it, the way I'm like, we open on the shot, it's memories, quick flashes of you running through a stream, like the way I described it to him, like he was like, whoa, I can't. There's no way I can present this to them. You have to come down to Las Vegas with me to present it. And I became really good friends with the client. Actually, it's funny because I'm still friends with the client, and it's like we still hang out, we still talk, and it's like just another reason, I guess, to stay in advertising. You find new friends. But I went to Vegas, presented it. There's about 20 people on this Go RVing board, members from coast to coast of Canada. And after I presented it, I had like music playing in the background. I had a little slideshow, just like Mad Men, man. I had like digital. I made a little like MP4 digital like slideshow, and I'm just like going through these images as I'm talking and stuff. And afterwards, they all stood up and they said, "We love this. This is great. This is exactly where we wanted to take take the Go RVing brand. And during the break, every single one of the board members said to me, "We're glad they brought you down here because we probably wouldn't be able to understand that TV spot if Chris presented it." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You love to present," and I'm like, "Yeah, I love the
Oh,
theater of
I
it."
wanna have a special part of the conversation here with you about presentations.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
okay, so uh, what made you come back and then to from not come back, go to Mosaic after Doug&Par?
I went to Mosaic because I wanted to rise up to the CD level. I wanted to see what it's like to be a creative director. I think a lot of people get into advertising, and you know, that's kind of towards the end of the finish line is CD, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
ECD or like CCO, Chief Creative Officer, maybe, like if you want to go that far.
Mm-hmm.
But CD for me felt like, yeah, it feels attainable. I want to get there. And so Mosaic offered me a creative director position. They wanted me to bring my thinking style, my traditional agency experience to Mosaic because Mosaic is anything but traditional advertising agency. They have a bunch of different creatives, all singular creatives, no copywriter, art director pairs. Everyone's all by themselves. And you have people who are copywriters, some are art directors, but then a lot of them are pyrotechnic engineers. We actually had a woman, Sarah Vinton, really smart, really great. I loved working with her. She was a pyrotechnic engineer. She built pyrotechnics for Burning Man. Like that's her creative
Oh,
style,
oh my
like
gosh.
she knows how to make big builds and like all the like technical bits are like to a T, like everything's dotted, everything's crossed. That's her kind of style creative.
Mm-hmm.
And she was great. And so they just wanted me to bring my kind of traditional style of thinking into the agency and kind of oversee a bunch of creatives. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it at first. I got to work on a lot of big brands, Budweiser, Google. I got to work on 4 different cannabis brands when cannabis was becoming legalized,
Mm-hmm.
which was super awesome. I got to travel a lot. I got to work on Coca-Cola. And so yeah, it was great because I got to work on these big brands, and that's what I wanted, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I want to work on big brands again, and I want to be CD. And I got to manage a lot of great creatives. And so that's what I wanted. I wanted to be a mentor. I wanted to be someone who can share their knowledge and make really good stuff, really great stuff. And towards the end of my stay there, um, once again, like I said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
big agencies come sometimes a lot of politics. There's a lot of
For sure.
politics that come into an agency a lot of times, and people were leaving, people were coming, and I just saw how the creatives were being treated, and it just didn't feel like a right place for me. And so we parted ways, me and Mosaic, and I started freelancing after that. I was kind of on this hunt of like, what's the next thing for me? Because that's for me. I think I've I'm a jack of all trades. I can plumb my own washroom and whatnot. I'm a pretty handy guy. I refurbish cameras too. And so I didn't know what the next step was for me. So I was kind of freelancing at a couple different places. And then Doug and Partners came back. Doug, I'm actually really, once again, really good friends with Doug. I think
Mm-hmm.
Doug is the only agency owner who's ever met my parents, ate at my family restaurant.
Oh
Like
God.
I wouldn't do that with a lot of people. Me and Doug are really close. And when I told him I was leaving to go Mosaic to be a CD, he's like, I want you to leave. I want you to experience what it's like to be a CD. I want you to learn from them so that in a couple years you can come back here
Mm-hmm.
and take those learnings, bring those learnings over here. And so I reached out to Doug, and he's like, "Hey, I'm changing the agency around. We're we're getting a new shop where I'm redoing everything. And so we're in the process of doing that. And, yeah, I loved it. I loved coming back. I think it's been a really good change for me. I think it allowed me to also find a little more work-life balance, as well. Right now, coming back to Doug and Partners, leaving Mosaic as a CD.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have all the same responsibility, which is actually really great. Like, I'm still overseeing projects on my own. I'm working on a auto trader campaign currently right now. I'm working on Reliance, working on a lot of different stuff. And what's great too is, like I said before, about working at a small agency that feels like a family. I'm working on pitches. I feel like I'm invested in this agency a little bit more so, because I'm with them trying to win new business. And I've helped them win new business. And the thing that I love about it is Doug calls me. He calls me. I've never had that kind of connection with an agency owner before. And it's been really nice. And that's like I said, that's one thing I think for a lot of the students. They need to kind of figure out what's the right kind of fit for them. And I think for me, it took me a little while to find that fit. And I went back. I came back to Mosaic because the fit felt good.
Wow, I can imagine this is the short version of the past few years, the past how much? Like 10 years? Yeah, 2011.
Yeah.
So 10
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
a
yeah,
decade
yeah.
ago. Oh my God,
I
a
know.
decade of work. So I want to say, Kelly told me this. Kelly Finamore told me this. There's no other person who presents like Matt Camara. So he told me you're a master of presentation now. That you are really, really something to see. That when you get there, you got it. You sell the idea. You sell in a very persuasive way and a very intelligent way. And they say that you have that kind of charisma. Can you tell me how important it is to have that kind of skill and how a student will acquire, besides us getting presentations at the college and every year we try to change and teach them different things, but I think a decade of doing this, it will give you, I really want to hear from you what you suggest to the students.
Yeah. That's I think for me, I've always been, I took drama in high school. I've always been really big into, I guess, being center stage, I guess, or I always love being in front of people. I don't know what it is. I've always had that. And I think I've tried to analyze what makes me so, I guess, able to just be able to present, just be able to talk to people, right? And I think the best way I can explain it is one, don't, up until the presentation, be 120% overthink it, invest yourself into it, make sure everything's right on. But when it comes to the presentation, let go. Because what's made is made. And what's going to happen is going to happen, right? They're either going to like it after you're done presenting it, or they're not. So you may as well give it 110% presenting it and just try to just disconnect a little bit, and just try to have a natural conversation with them. Try to keep it as natural as possible. And I think that's one thing I've always done, and it always works. Because when you try to get up front of the client and you try to be, very robotic and be like, this is why we chose this color, this is why, they're not going to see the passion. They want to see the passion, right? And so I think that's another reason why I think I'm able to sell the ideas, because I put the passion like into it. I remember, like, once again, the Coca-Cola. I did this thing for Coca-Cola at Mosaic. It's called the Coca-Cola Dep, the Dep Coca-Cola. It's a convenience store, and they wanted a program to give out samples. They wanted just to give out bottles of Coke at an amusement park. And I said, no. What we're going to do instead is we're not going to give out cans of Coke. We're going to give out experiences. And the client said, what? I'm like, you've done this already. You've done it already. And you came to us because you wanted something that was going to get people's attention and get teens' attention. And I know from my niece and nephew who are teens, it's impossible to get their attention. And what's going to get their attention is something that used to get our attention. And it's the corner store. It's the depth, the place that you used to hang out and you had total freedom. No parents, no one's watching you. And you go and you hang out at this depth. And we're going to give them exactly that, but we're going to have all their favorite influencers that they love there. We're going to give them custom skateboards, custom skis, whatever that cool Coca-Cola stuff that you can't buy, we're going to give it to them because this is the only place you can get it. And they were like, we love that. That's because I just said it to them like that. I'm like, listen, this is what you like. And then you got like, that's the thing, right? Because like, if you come at it so logical with them, like, like so robotic, it's not going to go well. And so, like I said, I think that's another thing too. Be natural with them, show the passion into it. And I think just let go. Don't get so attached to ideas. I think I learned very earlier on, don't get so attached to your ideas.
How is the conversation with the strategist that wants everything so this is the research, this is what I need to do, this is the outcome, this is the barriers, those are the tasks, and how you manage that relationship and to make things goes your way.
That takes I learned really good planning. I think once you have that nugget of the ideas, like for me, I had the nugget of we're not going to give out bottles of Coke, we're going to give out experiences, right? Mm-hmm. I went to the strategist and I said, hey, I know you guys briefed us to come up with a fun way to give out Cokes, but we're going to give out Cokes in a different way by giving out experiences. Can you give me research? Can you go and find me research on other brands that are targeting the same demographic? So teens, early teens, late teens, kids up to pretty much 14 to 18, mm-hmm. and see what other brands are focusing on them that didn't give out products but gave them experiences, and we can see what their sales did afterwards. And so they brought me brands like American Eagle. They brought me brands. They brought me a whole bunch of other brands that did a similar kind of concept where they gave out experiences in their own kind of way and style, but that then related to an uptick in brand loyalty, recognition, and then sales. Right. So I actually just went a little bit earlier on before the presentation and got my strategist to pretty much give me all the pre-up ammo that I needed. So once I gave them that idea, they also had that fact to kind of fall behind.
To pick you up.
Right? Exactly. Right. So they're like, if Perrier is doing this similar thing, and if these other brands that are like us are doing this and actually are getting results, then let's try it. And it worked. I won a bunch of awards for that, for that whole campaign. And it was a fun campaign. We went to all these amusement parks, ski hills, and we had this blast. It was packed. It was packed constantly. And they're doing it again. They were going to do it again, but in the pandemic. But yeah, it is now the ongoing program for summer and wintertime. The Coca-Cola debt. Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing story to hear. So that's amazing to hear about the presentation and the relationship. That in the end, it's all about teamwork, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it, right? Like I remember me and Kelly, we were working at TBWA, and they gave us a brief to show off the all-new Nissan Titan pickup truck. This thing came with a V10 diesel engine. Like this thing was the most powerful pickup truck at the time. And they wanted a commercial to show this off. And I told Kelly, Kelly, you know what we're doing? He's like, what? We're going to go up the steepest hill in Canada and we are going to launch 12,000 pounds worth of stuff onto a trailer as this truck's going up the hill. And at the end, we're going to drop the kitchen sink on it via helicopter. He's like, I love it. He's like, you sold me, man. You sold me. He's like, this is going to be so epic. And that's what we were going to make. We sold that to the client. I said to the client, I'm like,
oh my God.
I thought like, we open up on this steep hill. You know, I'm talking about the video, you know, and the truck's going up and we're catapulting stuff. We have people tossing things from their yards, their garbage onto this trailer. It's going up this hill. And the clients are like, wow, no one else can do that. Like, they're like, where'd you guys think of this? We're like, I don't know. I'm like, I always wanted to see a truck pull 12,000 pounds up a hill, up the steepest hill. And why not just have fun with it and throw stuff on the trailer, you know? It doesn't have to start with it all on it, you know? They're like, is this how you guys think? Like the clients, like as me and Kelly were describing to them how we came up with the idea, they're like, is this how creatives think? I'm like, this is how we think. Like, you know, like when we were in school at Mohawk, me and Kelly chose bulldog steel wool. This is one of my favorite things we ever worked on in school, man. And we chose bulldog steel wool. And me and Kelly were like, how are we going to come up with something cool for this? You know, like, man, it's tough, man. You know, it's tough. You know, it's really tough steel wool. He's like, who uses this stuff? I'm like, you know, anybody. He's like who? I'm like, you know, like your weak neighbor who can't even start his lawnmower, you know? With this stuff, he's way tougher though, because it's like he's super tough. Like he's like, you know, a bearded guy. And then Kelly's like, beards, steel wool, makes you tough. All right. And we made beards.
I remember that.
Out of this steel, different ones, mutton chop, big ones. And we actually made the beards. We actually made the apparatuses because we're like, I didn't want to Photoshop. I'm like, dude, it'd be way easier for me to add little textures and fill in the gaps where the wires are than to Photoshop actual steel wool as beard, you know? He's like, yeah, love it. And Kelly was really big into photography too, right? So for us, it was like, put the seamless, put the backdrop. He found random guys off the street. He just grabbed a guy off the street. Hey, you want to try this on and take a photo?
That's super Kelly. That's super Kelly.
Yeah. Gave him a beer. I had a beer. Like, you know what I mean? Took this thing. And I love them. They turned out so great, you know? And I remember showing that stuff around to like CDs and whatnot. And they're just like, how did you come up with this? And it's just like, I don't know. It's just my brain's just putting things together, you know? It's just like this. 1 + 1 = 3. You know?
People, yeah, but this is the fun part of it that people can remember. That is say, you can't come up with stuff like this. And I think there's a point in the program or when people are studying advertising that they click and they understand how fun it can be.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And not already they had hooked to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think by. It's funny because I remember back in school, it'd be like, okay, we need 70 thumbnails, 80 thumbnails, 100 thumbnails. Give us 100 thumbnails. And I think that was the best. That was great because that actually trained my mind now just to be like, does this? What about this? This? You know, just keep coming up with ideas because eventually.
That's Jeff Petrosi's secret formula.
Yeah,
it works all the time.
Right. Yeah.
When it works, or the students go business. So it's one of the two happen.
Yeah, no, it works. That and the I still have it. I just have it ways to brainstorm. I've dubbed it ways to brainstorm, and it's like flip it on its head. You know, like it's all those kind of questions and ways of brainstorming. I've shared that with people. I've shared that with creatives, and they're like, "Whoa, this has changed my way of like looking at briefs now." You know, I go through this checklist. Yeah. All that stuff I still hold on to. You know.
How well? Besides that campaign, can you tell me a few of the fondest memories at Mohawk, Matt?
Some of the fondest memories of
Memories.
Mohawk. Mohawk, I'm really glad that the Mohawk College program you guys have so much, well, I guess now that students don't have access, but because of the pandemic, but I remember you guys have a print shop now. You guys have like an actual section for the agency.
Mm-hmm.
And like I miss that. I wish I had that when we were back. It'd be really nice. I would say one of my fondest memories is booking out the cameras, getting the cameras. It's like you had to rush, you had to run down there because it's like you had to like make sure you got it if you had to shoot something or like for your like some of the assignments you guys are giving us. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
like just like oh man, I remember it was not a great memory, but it's one that sticks in my head, that's for sure. But a great fond memory is from that one of those projects that we had to go run down and book the camera for was I fell in love with photography because of advertising, because of the advertising program. Like when we had to do that double page spread
Mm-hmm.
project, and then me and Mario did the Coca-Cola Sin City black and white graphic kind of graphic novel style, and like I love that. I fell in love with photography, and so it's like one of my definite fond memories is the fact that I fell in love with photography, with advertising. I think another fond memory is I still have a lot of I still speak to a lot of people that in our class, Ryan, Kelly, Mario. Mario became one of my best friends,
Mm-hmm.
because of the program. I see him every day pretty much. I already talk to
Mm-hmm.
him every day. So it's another fond memory is just the people. It's there's not many places where you gather a lot of similar minded kind of characters. We're like this island of misfit toys, a lot of creatives, because we think a little differently, we do things a little different,
Mm-hmm.
like Raph, how many people still use analog film cameras? You know what I mean? Like there's so many
Mm-hmm.
people I see on the street, they're like, what is that film? It's like they still make film. Like, why do you even shoot
Yes.
with that? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, why not? Because it's a lost art. Because it's magical. And so I
It
think
is.
that's another thing about advertising. It's magical. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I said, how often is it that you can come up with a random idea of pulling a truck up a hill, and getting to go make it, like yeah. So I think
Talking
uh,
photography, Matt.
yeah.
What do you think is how important you think? We're talking about presentations already. How much do you think as the photography is important and as a compositions and art director to understand light and colors
Oh,
and saying, yeah,
very important.
how
Very,
important it
very.
was for you?
Oh, it was very crucial. Because when I got into doing like TV spots, doing video, how important it was to make sure that, everything is being lit properly, especially going into the color transfer later on in the process, and just like you said, composition wise, like how many times I've had, non-creative, non-art director, let's say my
Hmm.
copywriter, Kelly, say my copywriter, my other copywriter, not Kelly, because Kelly had a little art director in him,
Yes.
but some of my other copywriters that I've worked with, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have like, I need to have 3 of these elements in here, or maybe 5. They're like, why not 4? Why not 2? It's like, psh, do you even know composition, man? I'm like, it's like, I want, like, come on, man. I'm like, like just random things about like, just like doing a layout. It's like, no, man, I need less copy or more copy, or can you make this copy like this? Like, no, actually, no, don't worry about it. I'm just gonna relay it out, and, just like
Uh-huh.
it's like, yeah, it was very crucial. It's very crucial photography because it's like I've done photo shoots with stuff, and it's like I've gone to the photographer like, nah, man, don't worry about it. We're just gonna drop it down a stop, make it a little bit darker. I'll up the vignetting on it, because like there's times where it's like you don't have the budget, you can't do certain things, or while you're doing a video shoot, you have a photographer shooting as well. And so having both the video brain and the photography brain, still brain working together, be like, okay, man, as we're setting up this shot, you can capture these kind of stuff, like as we're shooting this, you can stand behind the camera on this scaffolding and capture this kind of angle, and so it's like it's helped me out a lot, especially like I said, when I had to start doing a lot of video, it helped me transition into it way easier. Like I said, now my photography game is way better, because as I'm framing stuff, as I'm shooting stuff, I'm looking for all those angles, I'm looking for those interesting shadow casts, and 'cause I shoot a lot of black and white. And so for me, shadows and angles and rules of three and that's kind of my thing now.
Before the podcast started, Matt and I were just exchange our babies here, our cameras, and see how he was showing his new Fuji and Nikon.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, it's such a sweet cameras. And how we get into do you think from the trigger happy digital phone era or that we live in, to go back and stop and have to think about what you're shooting, it makes a difference the way you think too when it comes to art direction? Do you think film photography is a good experience to people?
Yeah, I think getting into analog photography, especially, you only have so many shots, and it's like, it's definitely made me think put a little more thought into making sure, especially for doing video. I've noticed that it's like, hey, each frame, each couple scenes, they have to be important. They got to they have to be crucial to the storytelling. Especially in this most recent Auto Trader campaign that I'm doing, it's like you have 30 seconds, and a lot of people would think that they can do this shot. Oh, we're gonna have this kind of sequence happening, and this, like, no, like a lot of people are like, no, you can't do that. I'm telling people, you can't. It's impossible. You have 30 seconds, and this is the story we're telling. These are the key frames. So just getting down to the key frames, and then even getting into the edit of the TV of the spot. I was like, no, we don't need this cut. Let's have this. These are the crucial scenes. That's what tells us the story, and it turned out a way better edit by having less. Because it's like, just have the frames and the scenes that tell the story. And I think I got that from analog photography, especially from shooting on my Fuji 690. It's like I get 6 shots sometimes, depending on the film that I put in it. And so being able to it's like, okay, it's like, I got this shot. It's like, do I wait 8 minutes for the sun to change a little bit, or do I, take this shot? And it's like, it's like really having to make sure everything's framed and proper. Because it's crucial. But the reward sometimes is so worth it, because I also develop my black, because that's another reason why I do black and white, because it's way easier to develop.
I just developed. One of the things that I learned during the pandemic was to develop again. So I got it. Develop here too, just black and white, no C.
Yeah. I don't need to. You don't need to. But it's like when you develop it, and you're like, oh man, this shot right here, like the train, how everything, the shadows are. I'm just like, it's trying to, like, it makes it worth it. In the end. And so, I think
what are you using? I used the Cinestill Mono Bath. It was super. It was super easy and no issues. But now I bought a Kodak D76. Let's see how it does it. Let's see how. I didn't open it yet, so I need to mix in.
So the great thing about the Cinestill Mono Bath is it's a little bit stronger in activating like the silvers and whatnot, because it's based for their film, right? Which is movie film, which actually has the extra layer on it, right? And so that's why their monobath I find is actually a little bit better because I don't know why. It just gets me those nicer like contrast crushed blacks for me, I find. But who knows? That's just my personal preference. But I love their film. Have you shot their film?
No, not yet. I saw that.
Ooh,
I saw the scene is still color one that have that glow onto the lights on
yeah,
the night
yeah,
that
yeah.
really stands out.
It's really nice.
Uh,
It is good. It is really nice. It is really, really nice. And their double X black and white is amazing. Is amazing.
you need to try it. I just
Yeah.
getting three X's and I for it. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
five.
I'll give you. I have some special stuff for you, Raph. I'm going to give you some really special film. Okay, like this is
Oh
rare
man,
stuff. Rare stuff. It's
live guys. Yeah, you're hearing
uh,
that first.
document it. Washi.
Okay.
Look up Washi Film. I don't know if you've heard of them. It
No.
is they are the smallest film manufacturer in the world, and they take film that was, let's say, audio recording film or aerial surveillance film, and they recut it to 120 and 35, and
Oh.
they re-spool it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like really magical stuff. Like it's like I shot on this audio film. It's like this film is made for recording audio, but
Oh
they
my
said
god.
no, we're going to use it for film, for pictures, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
what comes out is so magical and different. You have to try it out. You have to try it out.
I
So
will. I will. It's
I'm gonna
already
give you I'm gonna give you a roll of it. It's
cool.
so good, so good.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, well, Matt, let's go through it's 1 hour here. We can spend definitely 7 hours here just talking about fun. But I will get you into this. You probably saw, I just asked another interviewer, they probably saw hundreds of books on juniors and people from different colleges coming in and trying an internship and want a job. What are the major mistakes that you see in books, and what kind of recommendations you would give to people to not only the work itself, but how to contact, kind of interview mistakes, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would say for your book, um, make sure make sure you have work in there that you're proud of. That you're proud of. Don't put any eh, this is you don't want to have that kind of feeling about any of your work, right? Because if you
Hmm.
have that feeling, then a CD is gonna probably have an even worse feeling about that work, you know? So I would always just make sure you have work that you're proud of, that's, really showing off your skills, right? The whole point is to land an internship. So you want to make sure you're showing off either your skills and your kind of your personality, right? Your style. Because a lot of agencies, not only are you looking for the right fit, but they're also looking for the right fit, right? So they want to make sure that you mesh really well with their agency. So you want to make sure that your book's showing off your personality as well. I would say for copywriters, this is hard because I know it's hard for copywriters to have really good looking ads, because sometimes they don't have an art director to work with. I would, I think I would definitely, because this is what I did at Mohawk. I would just go around to copywriters who didn't have good looking ads, but I saw the potential in the copy and was like, hey, can I art direct that? Can I
Hmm.
can I redo this for you? But we both have it in our book, like just get that, give the credit.
Hmm.
And that way, you're practicing your skills, you're challenging yourself by art directing something that wasn't yours. So you kind of like, oh, how would I do this? Like, so that's going to give you a challenge and broaden your skill set, but it's also going to broaden your book, right? You're going to have something really, probably even better in your book. I would say things not to do, things not to do in a portfolio review. Um, don't have an ego. Don't have an ego. Be yourself. There's been times where I've had, kids come in and they have really good work and they know they have good work and they kind of have this like ego about themselves, that's not really good. I really don't
Hmm.
appreciate that. I don't like that, because once again, it's like the fit, right? It's all about that fit. So yeah, don't have an ego. Be yourself. Um, what's another thing not to do? Another thing not to do is don't have too much of, let's say, like one style of creative in your book, don't have just all digital, make sure you have campaigns, right? Make sure that it's like they can kind of see how your idea and your thinking can live in all different types of media. They want to make sure
Hmm.
that, your idea has legs to it, um, not everything has to have a full campaign, but try to, right? Because it's like just makes your book nice and thick and nice and heavy, nice and gives everything breadth and legs to it all. Because there's been a lot of times where I've had people come in their books and they have like these one-ups, and it's like
Hmm.
it's like, okay, the idea is really smart. You ever thought about how this can be, applied, in a different way, in a different medium, like in a banner, like, in a digital ad, or,
Hmm.
like come up with just how can this idea live just in different ways? You don't want to have a bunch of one-ups in your book. I would say also be current. Be current. Try to be as current as possible. Try to always make sure you're up to, you know, what's going on in the world today, especially with the pandemic. I know I've seen a lot of COVID ads and a lot of agencies are doing a lot of COVID, or they did when the first pandemic opened up.
Hmm.
Not saying that's the right thing to do, but try to be current, especially because you don't want to also have like a bunch of just print ads in your
Of course,
you know what I mean? You don't
of
have
course.
that. Who does print anymore?
I will tell you a funny story. This year, the young kids at first and second year have a hard time visualizing in their heads what a print ad for a magazine is. When it comes to
Oh,
how I gonna do a print ad that sells in a magazine, because they're not used to
yeah,
pick up a magazine to
totally.
read anymore. And for me,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
very different. It's been for a few years, but now I feeling that it's really distancing from their reality.
Interesting.
Having to
Interesting.
get it.
Because it's funny because I thought the same about 2, 3 years ago. I'm like, when am I going to do another print ad? And then all of a sudden, I started doing a lot more like insert layouts and whatnot, like editorial layouts for brands. And I was like,
Hmm.
huh, this is interesting. Like this is a little different. It's not your typical print ad, but it's like this person wrote a really good write up about the product and they want it to be like an ad. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's an interesting challenge, Or I've had at times Reliance. I've had to design like once again, advertising is not all TV spots and like digital campaigns. I had to design newsletters for
Hmm.
them. You know what I mean? Like there's gonna be times where you're given these random
Projects, okay.
asks, yeah, right? Like random projects where it's like I have to make okay, cool, sure.
Hmm.
I also had to, like I said, I've been given asks where they wanted me to design a mural for their office wall. And
That's
it's
cool.
like, oh, okay, that's
That's
a
cool.
pretty cool challenge, It's like, so like I said, it's just don't let any of your ideas be too tied down to a certain, medium. I think,
I don't know about you, Matt. I think the magazines are getting more niche and more well done. I think
hmm
there's more craft on the paper and the finishing, and they're being more
yeah,
well executed. But they're
yeah,
less magazines, but they're
yeah,
more well built. So I think
yeah,
it's transforming itself. I know it's never be the same, but I think it's going to a good place. I think for
yeah,
people who really enjoy that kind of stuff.
yeah.
You know? But it's funny. It's hard for the students to really get print ad magazine. They understand because it's not being part of their day to day. I think for
Yeah,
most
yeah,
of
yeah,
them.
yeah. That's interesting. That's really interesting. That's really, really interesting. I think, like I said, I think don't just be too focused on the one type of medium. Yeah, like to make sure the idea lives in different ways.
After a year of the pandemic, this is March 2020, guys, when we're recording this. And what do you think juniors and students coming in as interns should expect for the work environment? Hybrid, most of the stuff remote, or will people will be
Hmm.
back to the agencies? How do you think the future will be, Matt?
I think the future is actually going to be a lot better for creatives. Um, like I said earlier in the recording in the podcast, I I worked a lot of hours. I pulled in 75-hour work weeks on a lot of times, once again, it's the nature of the kind of agency that you go at, right? If the agency's getting a lot of pitches, then you're working a lot of late hours. If there's a lot of tight deadlines, you're working a lot of late hours.
Mm,
That was then. Now I found because of the pandemic, the time that I'm saving not commuting to the agency, I'm finding all these really extra little pockets of time to do the work when I wasn't working before. So I get up super early. I get up super early every day. This is not for everybody, but I get up at like 6, 5:30, 6 every day. And I do a lot of my work during that. I get all my emails put together, my photo selects or whatever I'm doing. I send all that stuff out by like 8, 9 o'clock. And
mm,
by the time everyone else is taking, an hour or 2 hours to review everything, collect their feedback, I'm doing my thing. Like it's like I've wrapped up all my work. Now
mhm.
I can go out for a little photo walk, go grab a coffee, enjoy, the neighborhood, go for a walk, come back, get a couple of my emails back, I'll respond to them. And it's like, you know what I mean? I found this really nice, really, really great work-life balance now because of the pandemic. And I think I think creative people in general, a lot of the creatives at all agencies really prove that like, guys, we can get work done outside of the office. There was
Mm.
always that question. A lot of creative directors
Yes.
didn't like when it's like, hey, we're going to the coffee shop to work. A lot of them didn't think you were doing a lot of the work. You know what I mean? Like, there's this
Mhm.
kind of misconception, right? That you have to be in the office to do work. If you're not in the office, you're not working. And I think creatives in the entire industry have showed that, hey, we get work done no matter where we are, which is really great. And so I think when people start to get back to the agencies, I think it's going to be like a little bit of a hybrid. I think it's going to be like I know Doug and Partners, they've been kind of talking about a two day on, 3 day off, 3 days on, 2 days off, kind of rotating kind of,
People there, I see.
yeah, it's like schedule. Um, but it's like it's really going to be like a color coded system. So if the meeting's coded green, you can take it from home. If it's coded red, you better be in the agency to take it,
I see.
And so it's going to be like that kind of stuff. And it's like red coded meetings are only going to ever happen at like on Tuesdays after like a certain time period, right? Just to give people ability to travel and make their way to the agency, right? So yeah, I think it's gonna be a really interesting. I think it's gonna be really for the good. I think it's gonna be this really nice kind of hybrid kind of system, which I'm hoping for. I think that's something. I think that's something creatives needed. I think there's this. I think just creative people in general have this kind of. We love to. We love to seek approval. We
Mhm.
love to get recognized, right? It's I've always had this kind of I've always compared creative people, people in advertising, art directors, copywriters, um, to Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner.
I see.
Yeah, the
How come?
Roadrunner
How come?
is the Roadrunner is the client or the viewer, the audience, and they're always running around. And the Wile E. Coyote is always trying to capture it, trying to get the person's attention, trying to make you buy the product, see the ad, like the ad, comment the ad, share the ad, right? We're always trying to capture that, right? And
Hmm.
that's the Roadrunner. And if you watch the old Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons,
Oh, I know all of them.
the coyote is always doing very elaborate ways to get that thing, to get that
Hmm.
goddamn Roadrunner. And when he fails, or if he somewhat succeeds, he always looks to the camera trying to get approval, right? He's always trying to be like, yipes, or like he's always
Yeah.
trying to look at you and be like,
Or
did you see what
ouch.
I did? Did you see what I did? Did you see all this effort I did for you? You know what I mean? And it's so, I feel like creators are like that, right? We're always trying to get attention. We're always trying to, why do you think there's so many award shows, right?
That's a
We're
great
always,
analogy.
right? To get acknowledgement, right? 'Cause that's what we want. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, I think there's this, yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say anymore, but I just feel like it's an interesting time. I think for people trying to get into the industry with COVID. I think it's hard. It's also hard too right now because I'm such a people person. I need to get this acknowledgement from people, and I need to be in a room. I love being in a room with 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 clients, with creatives, with brainstorming. And so it's been a little challenging, doing it remotely and via Zoom
Same,
and
same,
Teams,
same
right?
with me with the students, man.
Right. And so
It's
I think it's this kind of
very hard.
weird. It's a weird time. It's a weird time in a good way, and it's also a weird time in this other way, which, like I said, it's been challenging, and I've been trying to find new ways to make it work. And it's been working. It's been working. I think I don't know. I've actually found just getting on the phone actually works a little bit better for me too. Because sometimes I'm so focused on like what I'm doing in this little square while I'm talking to somebody that I
Hmm.
forget, like I lose kind of focus. And so I love the fact that I've, I've called people on the phone way more now than I ever used my phone for. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
it's amazing to see. Do you have a standing setup there?
yeah, I do. I have a standing setup as well. Yeah, yeah, that also helps.
That's
I need to
great.
split.
That's great. Maybe I need to get this kind of setup for my classes too because it helps to walk around and have that kind of.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially
It
for
makes you
me.
feel somehow kind of you're there. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly,
Uh,
exactly. That's one thing I found really helped. I like to walk and talk, use my hands and stuff, and so I need to. Yeah, the standing desk has been great. Because like I said, during this pandemic, it's like video chats all the time. It's like it's hard to. At first, it was hard. It was really hard trying to
oh
do
yes.
presentations and stuff. It was a little challenging for me, but like as soon as I got the standing desk and I actually have another camera, like a wide angle camera that gets like a little bit higher and down, so I can actually a little bit
Oh,
different,
okay.
a little bit
The
different.
fancy setup. Okay.
Yeah, just so once again, just to get a little bit more of a wider theater type of aspect ratio kind of framing. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, no, it's been good. I think it's gonna be a really great time. I think for students getting into advertising right now. 'Cause I think they'll find that they'll be able to have that work life balance early in their career, which is really nice, which is really really good.
How the students can contact you or follow you on Instagram, man?
Yeah, people can shoot me an email on my personal email, actually, too, if they want. I'll give my personal email. It's matt.camara.cmyk@gmail.com. Once again, that's another thing I got from advertising. I was like, oh yeah, when I learned about the print process and whatnot, CMYK and RGB is like, I'm definitely a CMYK kind of person. And so my Instagram is the exact same, actually. It's CMYK_addict on Instagram, so they can see all my photography, and it's pretty much photography
great
based.
Instagram. I follow that. It's great content. Yes.
Yeah, it's soon going to start filling up with my house renovation photography.
Cool.
I'm renovating the house right now too. But yeah, they can reach me those two ways.
That's great. Well, Matt, thank you so much for giving out those stories. I think it's amazing how every single people have lots of different stories, and that's make it. It's even the podcast is not for the students only; it's for me too. So it's great to it's great to have that connection with you guys again, and and probably looking forward definitely to when we can meet each other, go for a photo walk, and I get my one of my analog cameras here too. And we go to shot some film. I will guide you on that specific film.
Nice. Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Yeah, like I said, it's I'm always willing to talk to the students. I know back before the pandemic, I tried to come into the school as much as I could to talk about, review the work and just talk about advertising in general. And so I'm actually looking forward to when the schools can actually open up and kids can get back to school. And so I'd love to come in again and just hang out and just talk.
You're invited already. I can't
Sweet.
You. Now that you're here too, you're already on the list.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah. It's just
there's no escape.
It's a quick. It's a quick hop skip up the mountain. So it's great.
Yeah. Matt, thanks so much. So Matt Camara, Associate Creative Director at Doug&Par Partners. Thank you so much for being here. I have one last question for you, actually.
Yeah.
What is the Underexposed Camera Club?
Oh, Underexposed Camera Club.
I forgot to ask about that. Yeah.
This is something me and my wife Louise are starting. We're in the midst of starting. It is. It's hard to explain what it is because I refer to analog cameras and film kind of like wine. When they're gone, they're gone. A lot of the film cameras, the parts are impossible to get. You have to usually buy a broken one to fix yours, and hopefully it has the parts. And so the Underexposed Camera Club is really just it's going to be a group where analog film lovers can kind of meet up, and if they need a light seal for their F3, I'll make it for them because I'm in the midst right now, Raph, of
3D printing stuff,
laser cutting.
Laser cutting? Oh my god!
The light
fancier.
seal. Oh yeah, man. I'm not gonna cut those things out with the X-Acto knife. Laser. So doing just being able to supply people light seals for all their different kind of cameras. I'm actually also trying to get the templates for a lot of the cameras, so I can even laser cut out new leatherette for them. Trying to save cameras as much as possible, and just for a place to kind of like-minded film lovers to kind of just meet up, hang out.
It looks like the camera rescue project from Sweden.
Yes, that is my exact inspiration. Oh man, I'm so glad you.
I met the guy came to us. I met him in Burlington. The guy from the camera rescue. Yeah.
Oh, I applied for their camera rescue internship.
Do you have a Skype with him?
I did.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So
and he was great, super great to talk to.
Great guy.
But then the pandemic happened, and
Wow.
he had to take people. He couldn't take anyone from outside. He had to take them pretty much within
Because
Europe.
I saw the news. He opens even a school. He wants to open a
Yeah.
school here. Yeah, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
great. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you're doing a similar initiative here, Matt. It's
Oh,
super
yeah.
glad.
I was telling him about. He's like, oh, that's really cool. He's like, I told him about like laser cutting out that. He's like, I never really thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, man. As long as you have the templates in Illustrator or what have you, just cut them out. It's like so quick. He's like, oh. So yeah, man, I had a really great conversation with him. But yeah,
How people can get information about the club right now?
the club, they can email me because right now it's just in the midst of getting started.
Starting? Okay.
It's just in the midst of being created. I kind of made the logo once again.
Let's say, guys, all the photographers in the program, I will keep you posted. Once Matt give me the news, I will share, or just follow Matt into Instagram, and that he will tell when this is running there. Same like
Exactly.
he had Instagram. Yes.
I'm hoping
Matt,
to
thank
get
you
going
so
by
much.
the summer. Yeah. No worries. Oh, Raph, this is great.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Take
me.
care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.